For number 1, you need to translate the following. 6 less than 4 times a number, and then all of it is being squared. So 4 times some variable minus 6, and then in parentheses, everything's squared. Questions on that first one? The second one, we need to combine like terms. So distribute, combine your x's and your numbers. You get 10x plus 18. And then for the third one, evaluate. So we're going to put negative 3 in for all of our x's. When we do that, we get positive 3. So f of negative 3 equals 3, or f of x equals 3. Questions on any of those? Number 4, this was going back to slope. Find the slope between these 2 points. So we needed to subtract 4 minus 4 over 4 minus a negative 3. We would have got 0 over 7, which just simplifies to be 0. And number 5, you could have done this a couple different ways. The easiest would be to start at the point they give you, negative 2, positive 4, and use the slope negative 2/3 and graph your line like that. If you were to find the equation of the line, you would have a decimal y-intercept, so that may not help you the best with graphing. Do we have any questions on that? Today we're going to start new notes on graphing quadratics. So everyone should have notes that look like these in front of them. Make sure everyone is paying attention. The first page is a lot of vocab. So I'm going to pull this down so you can copy down that vocab and what these definitions are. First, all of our quadratic equations are written in the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So it's like the trinomials we were factoring before. When we graph these quadratics, they make a U-shaped curve. This U-shaped curve is called a parabola. So when you hear the word parabola, U-shaped, quadratic, all of those things go together. We'll get to how we get these sketches here in a second. You can roughly sketch what you see. We'll talk about the vertex vertices here in a second. But for now, just roughly sketch this. It doesn't have to be exact. Make it as best as possible. When we are graphing these, if we have a positive a, so the a value in our quadratic, where the number in front of x squared is positive, our parabola, our quadratic, is going to face up. If the a value is negative, or whatever is in front of the x squared is negative, then our parabola, our u shape, is going to face down. Anyone still need this part? When we graph these lines, there will be an axis of symmetry that will be maybe not really drawing, but drawing it around. This is a vertical line that divides the parabola into two equal parts. So we may not actually draw in the axis of symmetry every single time, but whether we draw it or not, we'll be able to see like this invisible line that cuts the parabola in half. There is a formula to find the axis of symmetry. We're going to use this formula, x equals negative b over 2a. And that will be something you'll need to remember. Something else you'll need is the vertex. The vertex is the turning point of the parabola. What that really means is there is a point on the axis of symmetry where it goes from decreasing to increasing, or vice versa, where it comes down and then goes back up, or goes up and then goes back down. So when the vertex is the lowest point, so I'm going to go back up for 1 second. So here, when your parabola faces up and your vertex is at the lowest point, that is your minimum. And when your vertex is at the highest point and your parabola faces down, that is your maximum. I think that's the last definition. Does anyone have questions on any of those vocab so far? So, say that again. Parabola. That's your U-shaped curve. So anytime you see this U-looking thing, that's your parabola. Anyone still need any of this? While we're finishing writing this down, go grab your calculators if you don't have it. So for this, we are going to find our axis of symmetry, find our vertex, and then do a rough sketch of what this would look like. So for your axis of symmetry, remember that's your equation x equals negative b over 2a. The b and the a are going to be found from your quadratic equation. This negative stays the same no matter what. But here we have a positive 8. So we're going to put in negative, but then we're going to make it negative, but it was positive. And then our 2 times our a value is 1 here. And then we can simplify. Negative 8 over 2 times 1. Or x equals negative 1. This is going to go in your axis of symmetry. To find our vertex, we're going to use that number we just got, the negative 4. And we're going to put this into our x's to find y. So every time you see an x, put in negative 4. And you can put that in your calculator or do it by hand, either or. So negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4. What was the last one? Plus 15. Parabola. So your y value is going to be negative 1. When you put in negative 4, make sure you are putting this in parentheses. If you don't put it in parentheses, you're going to get something different. So now that you have your y value, your vertex needs to be an ordered pair. So it's going to be negative 4, negative 1. You done? Okay, let me finish this problem now. Your rough sketch is going to look something like this. Draw an x and y axis. Draw where your axis of symmetry would be. So at x equals negative 4. You're going to draw like a dotted line or a dashed line, vertical dashed line. Mine is clearly not straight, so it's okay. You're going to draw in your vertex, which is going to be on this line. So negative 4, negative 1. And then our a value here is positive, so this would go up. So you're just going to draw arrows up. Very rough sketch. Because your a value is positive. So earlier, this said if a is positive, then the parabola opens up. So this one has a positive a. So then it would go up. Other questions on that one? Once you finish your rough sketch, we're going to move on to the next one. number 2. Same process. Find our axis of symmetry using that same formula. X equals negative b over 2a. Our b value here is 10, so this would be x equals negative 10 over 2 times our a value here is negative 1, so make sure you put in a negative 1. This would be negative 10 over negative 2, or x equals positive 5. And we'll divide it. Yes, the equation always has a negative in it, no matter what, whether our actual b is positive or negative. Then we're going to find our vertex, put 5 into our equation. This will be negative 5 squared plus 10 times 5 minus 20. And you can put that in your calculator. Kaylin, grab your calculator. Have a good experience. Negative 5 squared. I already forgot the rest. Plus 10x minus 1. So y equals 2. And our vertex would be what? 5, 2. Draw in your rough sketch. Axis of symmetry is now at 5, so it's going to be a vertical line at 5. With your vertex at 5, 2. 5, 2 would be somewhere up here. This a value is negative, so this is going to face down. Questions on that one? We are going to skip down to number 8. These quadratics are missing some terms. They can still be done though. So find our axis of symmetry. We still have our b. So that would be x equals negative 4 over 2 times negative 1. Or negative 4 over negative 2. So x equals 2. And then we can put this in to find our y value. So negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2. Again, you can put that in your calculator or do it by hand. What is your y value? So our vertex here is 2, 4. Draw in your rough sketch. So our axis of symmetry would be at 2. Vertex would be at 2, 4. Would this face up or down?
Up, down.
Down. Your A value is negative. So before we get into the actual graphs, practicing this stuff will help us once we get to actually graphing this. Before we move on, do we have any questions so far? Okay.
So if
You mean like where to put your line? It's based on whatever this number is. So if x equals 2, it has to be when x equals 2. So it depends on that number. If it's negative, you would put it over there. If it's positive, you would put it over there. When we actually graph this and then you see where it splits it in half, you'll be able to see that too. Number 9. When we find our axis of symmetry here, we do not have a b value, so that's going to be 0 when we put it in. So I'll still put the negative so we don't forget that, but negative 0 over 2 times 1. 0 over anything is going to be 0. So our axis of symmetry here is just going to be 0. That happens sometimes. If we put 0 into this equation to find y, what is our y value? Negative 3. So our vertex is at 0, negative 3. Draw in your rough sketch. I'm going to draw over top of my axis. Negative 3 would be somewhere down here. Would this face up or down? Up. Last one like this that we're going to do together. Number 10. To find our axis of symmetry, it would be x equals negative because that comes from the formula, but and here we don't have a b. I was thinking it would also be negative. There will be times, and I went through one of those, but like 7, you'll have a negative and the formula is negative, so the negatives will cancel. And then we have 2 over negative 2, but that doesn't matter because our b value is still going to be 0. What would our y value be if we put 0 into this equation?
8.
8. So our vertex would then be 0, 8. Draw in your rough sketch. Would this face up or down?
Down.
Down. For the remainder of class, I want you to go through numbers 3 through 7, find the axis of symmetry, your vertex, and draw in your rough sketch. And if we have time, we'll go over those. If not, we'll go over them tomorrow.